I ended up sneaking away to one of those mini bars and drinking vodka just straight out of the bottle because my sisters thought it would be funny to like get me drunk, and um, I noticed everyone around me was feeling silly and happy and just loose and comfortable, and I didn't feel that. So the first time I drank, I did not get that euphoric feeling, but it did trigger my allergy because I started drinking alcoholically right away. And going into high school, I started to party, I started to smoke other things, and I was a blackout drinker. So that put me in a lot of dangerous situations as a female who's a blackout drinker. And I thought that was just part of that life. I thought that that was normal. I thought that that was okay. Um, Thank God in this program that I found out it wasn't. Um, but yeah, I was the person who was like throwing up in people's shoes. Um, like nobody wanted to hang out with me because I would get too crazy, um, that sort of thing. But it was kind of limited because I mean I did a lot in school. I had really good grades. I did dance classes, so it was kind of contained because I had so much going on. And my mother was very like, you have to get an education. She has a PhD and she teaches at NAU. And so that was instilled in me. So the alcoholism was kind of contained for the time being. Um, and so then I graduate high school and I go to college, and college is much different. Like, it's just kind of suggested that you go to your classes. They don't really care if you do or not. So I didn't always take that suggestion. And I would party and I would go crazy. And I didn't have that parental supervision. I didn't have all these expectations. And so that's kind of when I started to lose control of my alcoholism. And I was dating this guy in college, and we got into a fight when I was super drunk. And long story short, I ended up with my first assault charge. And yeah, I spent the night in jail, and I was terrified. And I'm like, I'm never coming back here. I would go back 4 more times. Um, yeah, I really, that wasn't enough of a wake up call for me because it was he's dumb and whatever. So that obviously ended our relationship. Victim here, you guys. But so I ended up having to move back to my mom's house, and that was the end of spring semester of my freshman year. And so that summer, I just crazy. I not come back, and when I would come back it'd be like 2 in the morning and I'd have like barf on my shirt, and my mom thought I got food poisoning a lot that summer. um, but moving in together very fast. We ended up in a relationship very fast, and we ended up using together very fast. Um, and he also ended up being physically abusive very fast. Um, in the course of our relationship, that was under a year, he put me in the hospital 5 times. Um, and we started to flatter because we got an apartment together, which I was paying for with my student loans, which I don't suggest you guys do that because I'm still paying that off. Um, but anyway, we got this apartment, and I mean, he's an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, all of our friends are alcoholics, so and if not every day, like every other day. It was nonstop. And eventually, we started to spiral deeper and deeper down into this hole. And some things that I thought I would never do, I did. Um, the first time I ever did crystal meth was in that house. And like, if you had asked me 6 months before, I would have been like, no, that is terrifying. Like, I've seen the pictures of people without any teeth. Like, I do not want to look like that. But at that point, my alcoholism had progressed so much in that direction that it's like, I don't care. Anything to take away the feeling that I'm not good enough. Anything to take away the feeling of not being able to sit in my own skin because I hate myself so much. And that was the drug that I had that euphoric feeling with. Like, I had this whole plan that if I just did meth like once a week, everything would be fine. I was like, this is perfect. If I just do this every Friday, we'll be good. Like, everything makes sense now. And the cool part about that drug was that I could drink without blacking out. And so then I could fit in with the drinking crowd, and everybody actually wanted me around because they knew I wasn't going to start throwing up in people's shoes. So that was another part of that, was that I actually got to fit in. Like, people didn't even need to know I was on it. I would just show up at a party and be able to hold my shit together, which felt really cool to me, because I was never one who could stop before that blackout period. And so it really helped me feel like I belonged in a lot of different crowds. And so, long story short, that started to progress. And I started to sell drugs to support my habit of doing drugs. And the abuse with my ex-boyfriend was getting worse and worse and worse. And he finally put me in the hospital for the last time. And that was another excuse for me to just go insane, because if you had to live my life, if your life was as hard as my life, you would do it too. And how are you going to judge me for that, you know? And so it was a perfect excuse to do that. And so for my protection, I moved my drug dealer in my house, because I didn't want, I'm unsafe. I have to have protection. That was also not my smartest move. But so anyway, I'm living with my drug dealer. I've got people in and out of my house all the time, and I'm selling drugs. And eventually, I sold to an undercover cop, and I went to jail. And this was about my fourth time in jail. Yeah, fourth time in jail. And before this, I had always gotten arrested on like minor in consumption or something. Like, one time I told a cop that my name was Audrey, and he pulled my ID out and was like, no, you're gonna go to jail for that. But every other time that I had been to jail, it had been like I got out the next day. It wasn't a big deal to me. It wasn't something that really made me think about. Again, it was just part of that lifestyle, I guess. And so being arrested, I was like, it's okay. I'm just gonna get out the next day. Like, I don't even have to worry about it. And so I go in front of the judge the next day, and he tells me that I have 5 felony charges and my bond is $75,000. And I still didn't quite get it, so I'm like, okay, so should I go get my stuff? Like, am I gonna go home? And he's like, no ma'am, you're gonna go to housing. And so that was the first time I had spent like more than a night in jail. And I spent about a month and a half in jail. And I mean, obviously my mom like found out why I was in jail. It's public record, but you know, she had her suspicions about it, and I was the type of addict. I was manipulative, I was cold, I was mean. I was a mean person. And my mom had these suspicions, and I would have like a pipe behind my back, and she's accusing me of using, and I'm like, how dare you say that about me? Like, you should feel like shit about yourself for saying that about your daughter, you know? So that's the type of person I was. And so she finally finds out that her suspicions were true. And, you know, I'm swearing up and down, left and right, that I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to use anymore. And at the time, I was telling the truth. I meant that. And I wish I knew how at that time to not do that, but I didn't. And so I was released to pretrial services, and within 8 hours of my release, I was back doing the same thing. because I didn't know how to feel okay with myself. I did not know how to cope with life on life's terms without putting something to alter my state of mind. And so this time it gets worse, and I end up living in a trap house with like no running water in it, and there's like dog shit on the floor, and there's no dogs. I had like this special spot where I would like pee outside. It was right by this guy's car, and I always wonder, like, should I try to go make amends to that guy for peeing by his car so much? I probably should. But anyways, so I'm at this place, and the drug is slowly starting to not work. The drinking is slowly starting to not work. Everything that I'm trying to do to get out of my state of mind is slowly starting to not work. And at this time, I'm on pretrial services. So back in that time, you had to call into a place called Task for UAs. And then back then, it was like a color code system. And you had to call and like wait for your color to be called. And I was yellow. And, when my color didn't get called, that was a good day for me. And when it did get called, I was putting my body through a lot of physical pain to mask my UAs so I could pee clean. And I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm like ravaging my body. I can't get away from the drugs. I've broken everything off with my family because they can't stand to see me like this anymore. And I still don't believe I have a problem. I still don't believe I have a problem. I think I can stop whenever I want to. I just don't want to. But the truth of the matter is I could not stop, and I couldn't admit that to myself. And so, at this point, I'm not talking to my family, and I have this moment where I'm sitting in this disgusting house by myself, and I'm using drugs by myself, and I had this moment where I told God, some people are meant to get married and have a house and have a family and go to school, and some people are meant to die in trap houses. And I'm meant to die in a trap house. And so basically I had this moment with God where I was like, you stay out of my way and I'll stay out of yours, and we're done. And even my mom was like, I'm praying for you. And I was like, don't bring me into that shit. Like, I don't want anything to do with God. Leave me out of it. God is a joke. And so I continue living this miserable existence, and I continue to put anything and everything I can get my hands on into my body to try to create that same feeling I had the first time. And nothing's working, and I'm miserable, and I weighed like 85 pounds, and I was all like gross, and like my skin was yellow, and like I didn't shower that much. And my mom called me on a Friday evening, and my initial reaction to that was like, who fucking died? And because we weren't talking, and so I pick up the phone, and she says, you have a warrant out for your arrest. I was like, what? That's not possible. I did the baking soda thing. I'm like, what for? She's like, you peed dirty, Sierra. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, just act. And she was like, Sierra, shut up. Like, go to court on Monday, because I had court that Monday, and I was terrified. Because at that point, I did not know how to answer for my own actions. I did not know how to show up as an accountable, integral person. And I was going to, like, jump on a train and, like, go to Montana, because Montana doesn't extradite, and start a new life in Montana. Thank God I didn't do that, because I probably, like, would have chopped my leg off or something. But so I went to court on Monday in a cocktail dress, and I was like pleading with the judge at this point, because I was looking at the charges that I had were a 10-year minimum, or a 10-year recommended. I was looking at 5 to 15 years of my life in prison. And I had a public defender at the time who told me, like, oh, I can get you 3.5. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But then I ended up getting a different attorney. And anyway, so I'm answering for my stuff, and I'm glaring at the prosecutor because it's all his fault that this is happening to me. Um, and I actually like got in trouble. They were like, "You need to stop looking at him." um, and I had a mouth on me back then. Well, I mean, I still do, but it was a lot worse. And the judge looks at me, and back up in Flagstaff, there was a judge named Judge Hatch, and everybody called her the Hatchet because she was really mean. Um, and she looked at me and she says, "I could send you to prison right now if I wanted to." And she's like, "But I'm not going to do that because I don't think you would do well in prison." And I took that as an insult. Like, how dare you? I'll be fine. I'll run that place. All 85 pounds of me. I was like very offended. And so she said, "I'm going to give you one more chance. You're going to go to treatment, and then you're going to go to drug court." And I was like, what a bitch. Like, she's mean. And so I was like, "Nope, I don't want to go to treatment. I don't want to go to treatment. Nope, nope, nope. I want to go to one of those, like, Passages Malibu. Like, I'll do that, but nothing else." And so this time was different in jail. And I spent about a month this time waiting to go to treatment. And this time was different. My mom was not putting money on my books. My mom was not putting up with my crap. If I called her and I wasn't ready to talk about treatment, she'd hang up on me and like not answer when I called back. It was so rude. And so she was like, "Are you ready to talk about treatment?" I'm like, I'm not going. Just get me out of here." She would hang up on me. And then there was this moment, my niece was about 10 or 11 at the time. And her and I have always been extremely close. And she just said, "I don't know what's going on with you." At the time, she didn't really understand. But she said, "I just want the old you back. That's all I want." And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I sat there after that phone call, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so my mom finds me this treatment center in Utah. It was called Therapia. It's no longer around, unfortunately. But it was a 90-day program in St. George, Utah. And I was released, and my mom drove me up there the next morning. And it was a 12-step program. It was all women, first of all. And someone like me, I don't trust women. I don't trust female. Well, I don't trust anybody, but especially women, because the women I was running around with, it's like, what can I get from you? What can I steal from you? And what are you going to steal from me? How are you going to mess me up? And how am I going to screw you over? And so I did not trust women. So that was like a no-no for me. And then they were like, "Oh, no coffee, no cigarettes, no sugar. And you have to work all your 12 steps and like the King Baby assignment and these other stupid assignments before you go home." And I was like, I need sugar because I'm hypoglycemic. And they're like, "There's a bowl of fruit." Like, and I was like, oh, hell no. And I went into the meeting room. They were giving me a tour of the facility. And I saw the 12 steps hanging on the wall. And I saw a lot of God. And I saw a lot of work. And I was like, nope, 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 nope. And so I called my mom, and she had just left St. George like 30 minutes ago. And I was like, you need to come pick me up. I'm not doing this. And she was like, "I'm not going to come pick you up. Like, I'll pick you up and take you back to jail." And I'm like, "No, just come pick me up and take me home. I'm not doing this." And she was like, "You know what, Sierra, what do you have to lose?" And she's like, "If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what do you have to lose at this point?" And I was like, "All right, I'll show you it's not going to work." So I had this mission to show her that this was not going to work for me. But God did it again, and I was wrong. And thank God I was wrong. Because in that program, we worked our 12 steps. We did a very rigorous treatment center. And for the first time in my life, I connected with another woman who didn't expect anything from me. And I didn't have to expect anything from her. And I had my first real laugh in recovery there. I remember it. I had my first real cry there. Like at first, I got in trouble. I got in trouble for not crying because I was just so like, at that point, and if anyone knows me, like they probably don't believe that because I cry about literally everything. I cry when I see a baby cow. Like it's ridiculous. But at that time, I was so stoic and I just didn't trust you. My guard was up. I'm not going to let you see me weak. I'm not going to let you see me vulnerable. And I got in trouble. And then it finally like happened where we're on this beautiful hike in St. George and the sun's going down and there's like butterflies and shit. And I just started bawling my eyes out. And like everybody started like clapping for me. They're like, you did it! And so I spent the 90 days there. I went in September of 2015 and I got out in December of 2015. And when I got there, I did not want to be there. And when I had to leave, I didn't want to leave. And, you know, I still talk to the staff there that worked with me. I still talk to most of the girls I was in there with. Because when you're in treatment and when you first get sober and the people that you surround yourself with when you first get sober, there's a bond that just can't be explained. And so I get out and I start going through drug court. And again, something I felt I didn't need. I was above that. Like, I don't need to do this program. And again, I was wrong. And again, thank God for that. That program taught me how to show up and how to be on time and how to be where I say I'm going to be when I say I'm going to be there. It helped me work through a lot of the trauma I had faced. And it taught me how to stay sober. And it really taught me, like, all of those, I don't know if anyone in here is in IOP, but it was, like, pretty similar to that. And the whole, like, what are your triggers? Like, mindful breathing. Like, at that point, I was like, this is so stupid. But do you know how many times that saved my life? Like, it really, like, they know what they're talking about. And so, when I got out of treatment, it was kind of like a shell shock for me. I had gone from every moment of my life being mapped out for me, being in a white van everywhere I went, you know, not being able to like go to the bathroom without somebody knowing where I was, to, okay, like, bye, you're gonna go home now. And I was terrified, and I started to have these like terrible panic attacks about it. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was like, oh yeah, AA, like that's a thing that's here too. And so I went to my first AA meeting and I made my first friend. And he helped me find my first sponsor and she took me through the steps. And we worked the steps and she helped me to get to a place where I could sponsor other women. And it was an amazing experience to work them outside of treatment. It was a different feeling. And again, I had that psychic change where I just got on fire for recovery. I was able to carry the message to other people, and I was able to actually find a life worth living here. My first ever like introduction to an Alano Club was in Flagstaff, like way before I ever went into the rooms. And some guy was like playing pool there that I knew, and I was like, oh my God, this is where old people come to die. Like, this is a terrible place. But now it's like the Alano Club and like places like Safe Harbor, those little dinky church rooms, like that's my home. Like, I love it there. And I really had this huge fear that I was not going to be able to have fun in my sobriety. Because again, I thought like this is where old people come to smoke cigarettes and like die and complain about their lives. But it's not, it's so much more than that. I mean, it's part of that, but but anyway, you know, I got sober at 20 years old, and I hadn't taken a legal sip of alcohol. And for the old timers that are about to say they spilled more than I ever drank, like, you never hid meth in your underwear, so like, don't go there with me. Um, anyway, so it's true. But I really had this deep rooted fear that I was never going to have fun in recovery. Like, I'm going to be spending the rest of my life suffering. And the truth of the matter is that when I was in my active alcoholism, my world kept shrinking over the years. It got smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually it was a one-bedroom apartment that I never left, that I never opened the door to. And I had all these plans about what I was going to do with my life, and they never happened. I just sat in that one-bedroom apartment, and then eventually a disgusting house in like a shady neighborhood. And my world was not bigger than that space around me. That world was not bigger than the next fix for me. And I thought that was fun. Like, that's sad. And so I had this delusional thought that I was not going to have as much fun as I did, drinking baking soda water and trying, going crazy and getting my stuff stolen. But I had this really amazing experience, and I went to roundups, and I went to fellowship, and I learned how crazy you guys are, and we're like shutting down a Denny's at 2 a.m. type of thing. And then I also went to my first Young People's Convention, the Western Area Conference of Young People in AA, and I got to see that there were young people on fire for this program, on fire. And I wanted that. I loved the program, especially being a newcomer, because everybody paid attention to me. And I loved that. Like every month getting my chip, like, oh my gosh, thank you. I loved that. But I wanted more. I wanted to be on fire like the people I saw around me. And there were these women in Flagstaff AA where they were confident, and they were beautiful, and they were integral, and they did not care what anyone thought of them. And I was like, whoa, who are they? Like, that scared the absolute crap out of me, because I didn't know how to be a woman like that. I did not know how to show up without needing somebody's validation, without needing to stab you in the back, without needing to feel like every single person in this room likes me. And that still wouldn't be enough, because I wouldn't believe you. And so I started to look at these women who scared the absolute crap out of me, and I started to do what they did. I started to walk how they walked. I started to talk how they talked. And eventually that happened for me as well. I got to show up as an integral person. And this program has given me so much more than just sobriety. It's given me so much more than just defense against the first drink. Because of this program, I started off as a Sonic car hop. Worst job ever. Hated it. It was the worst job ever. But because I was able to show up, and I was able to work hard, and I was able to practice these principles in all of my affairs, I got to start working in the field that I wanted to work in, which is behavioral health. So I started off, I went from Sonic up to a secretary at the hospital for drug court. And then I moved on from that to working with children. And then I worked at the Guidance Center, which is a 28-day rehab up in Flagstaff. And then I moved down here. And I'm a children's case manager over at Southwest Behavioral Health. And I get to go to school today, which is awesome. I was terrified to go back to school. And I'm like a year away from getting my undergrad. And I get to show up, and I get to like doing school sober is like cheating. Like, Like, I remember the stuff. Like, I turn it in on time. Like, it's insane. And I get good grades. Like, it's so weird. Yeah, so I get to show up and I get to go to school. I go to school online, but still, that's awesome. I get to show up to work, maybe not always on time, but I show up to work. And I get to help people. And that is the least I can do for the people who helped me. There were so many people in this program that were willing to lend a hand to me, who were willing to go get coffee with me, who were willing to answer my calls at 2 a.m. when I was freaking out and I didn't know what to do. There were so many people who would pick me up because I didn't have a license till I was 22. So I didn't have a car. I have a car now and a license, which is another cool thing. And I had these people who literally would go to any length to help me. And I didn't understand that because I didn't feel that I was worth that kind of effort from anybody. I didn't feel that I had anything inside of me that was worth you giving me a ride to a meeting or buying me a coffee or answering my phone call. But that's what we do here. And that's what I get to do for other people. One of the best things that this program has taught me is how to be a friend. And I say that because I didn't know how to be a friend without stealing something from you and helping you look for it. I didn't know how to be a friend without talking crap behind your back and acting fake to your face. I didn't know how to be a friend without seeing what I could get from you. I didn't know how to be a friend without being on guard about what you were going to do to me to try to screw me over. But this program taught me how to show up unapologetically as myself. And it taught me how to show up, and it taught me how to be integral, and it taught me how to be honest even when it sucks. Because I had women in my life who were loving enough and kind enough and who gave a shit about me enough to call me on my crap. I was used to Tweaker Tammy co-signing my bullshit all the time. And when I got here, that's not what I got. And at first it really, of course it offended me because I would never been used to that. But I have friends in this program who are like, hey, Sierra, get your head out of your butt. It's not a hat. What you're doing is not okay. This is not how women in sobriety act. And thank God for those women, because if I was able to run my own show all the time, I would not be here. I almost wasn't here. I was looking at prison. I was looking at death. I had to do a physical before I went into jail, and my doctor was like, I don't know how you're standing in front of me right now. This is you're so unnaturally unhealthy that it's appalling to me. But that still, I still didn't have a problem. But getting into this program, it helps me to learn how to show up as a woman. And I get to do that in all areas of my life. When I'm at work, when I'm being a case manager, I get to be the best case manager there is. Because I know how to show up with integrity. I know how to help someone else because you guys taught me how to do that. When I show up to be of service to another woman, I know how to do that. You guys taught me how to 12-step because you 12-step me. And you took me on 12-step calls when I needed to get out of myself. I know how to go to school because you guys taught me, hey, the meeting starts at 6, get here at 5:45 and help out. So you taught me how to be a little more disciplined and not just have the Sierra show all over everyone's crap and rein it in a little bit. You guys taught me how to ride the waves. You guys taught me that I was worth celebrating my victories. And you guys taught me how to share my sorrows. Because in this room, I've learned that a joy shared is double the joy, and a sorrow shared is half the sorrow. And as much as I wanted to carry everything alone, and I still do this sometimes in my sobriety where things are going really bad, I will completely like shut down and not call you and not text you and not show up when I say I'm going to show up and like isolate and like just let myself like suffer because I'm sick. But luckily this program is a program of action, and I've had people show up even when I did not want them to. Especially when I didn't want them to. And so that's one of the gifts of this program, is that even when I don't see my growth, even when I don't see my worth, you see it. And the same is true for me. When you guys feel worthless or down on yourselves, I see the real you. And that's what this program does, is it rips away all of that crap that we're hiding underneath, all of those fronts, all of those self-protective mechanisms that aren't really us, and just exposes us like raw into the sunlight. And it's so uncomfortable, but it's so healing. And sobriety hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows. I wish it was. Like, I had this whole moment in treatment where I called my mom and I'm like, well, since I've been through so much, like, it really wouldn't be fair if I had to go through anything else like that hard. And my mom was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I just don't expect anything else like bad to happen to me anymore because it's not fair. I've been through my darkest days in sobriety. And thank God they happened in sobriety, because had they happened in my addiction, I would have killed myself. And had I not had this program to get me through those days, I would not be here. I would not be here standing here talking to you guys today. About 3 years ago, I lost a baby at 20 weeks pregnant. My husband and I were expecting a baby, and everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, for no explainable reason, my placenta detached. And there was nothing that anyone could do. And so I had to give birth to my child and say goodbye to her the same day. And thank God for this program, because that was a moment where I went right back into that attic thinking of, fuck God, why am I here? Why me? And I had women who showed up that next week, who brought me food, even though I wasn't going to eat it, and who just sat there with me. They didn't have to say a word. And they pulled me out of my misery. And my sponsor said, get up, you're going to a meeting. And I was like, no. And she's like, well, I know where you live. You can I'm going to give you a chance to get ready, or I'm going to pick you up and you're going to go the way you look. So it's your choice. And so I had women who literally carried me through that, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to get through that. And so the biggest message that I can give about this program is that if you work it can give you a life beyond your wildest dreams. I've done things that I never thought I'd be able to do. I've accomplished things I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. And I've gotten through things that I thought were going to kill me. And this program isn't for people who want it. It's not for people who need it. It's for people who do it. And I have to show up every day, and I have to work this spiritual program because my addiction is still here. It acts out in many different areas of my life. And I have to ensure that I'm taking the next offense, and that is by showing up here, being a service to the next woman who walks into that door, like so many of you were for me, and being able to show up honestly, even when it hurts. And I can't thank you guys enough for giving me my sobriety, and I can't thank you enough for all of the joy and the sorrow that we've shared, and how much you guys carry me through, and the recovery that you and I get to share. And I'll pass with that. Thank you.